Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is an editor-in-chief of The Bungalower, co-host of radio podcast show Bungalower and The Bus, Emmy-nominated TV host, food and drink columnist for the Orlando magazine. He's co-author of 100 Things to Do in Orlando Before You Die, host of Brenda's from Bithlow Pop-Up Bingo, an artist, and just an amazing person. Please welcome my friend, Brendan O'Connor. How are we doing today, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. That's a long list. I apologize for making you read it all.
I actually did I miss anything? Because I'm actually exhausted from reading it. So
I'm exhausted just hearing it back. Like I should do less. I should just be pothead, occasional pothead, and bad proofwriter. You know, that's what I'm angling for in 2025.
No. I do really appreciate you coming on and having a lunch break with me. Out of curiosity, like, what's your usual like go-to lunch or sandwich or anything like that?
Go to like location specific or just in general?
Whatever you want. Yeah, like however you want to answer it, in the sense of, do you have a favorite sandwich, a favorite lunch type thing to eat? What is it?
Kimchi, grilled cheese.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I like it like with like a cheddar, like an aged cheddar or like a pepper jack, and then some, like, if I always tend to have some sort of kimchi in the fridge. Whether it's apple kimchi would be good with the cheddar, and just throw it on there. A little mayonnaise or Kewpie, which is like the tinted mayo on the outside. So you get that real crisp on the bread instead of butter. Butter is for people who don't know any butter.
I love.
I didn't mean that part. It just came out that way. But the mayo makes your grilled cheese that much better.
It does. So where do you get the kimchi? Do you make the kimchi or do you buy kimchi?
I buy it. Yeah, forever. Like if it's like pop-up farmers market, I have probably 3 or 4 kimchi jars going in the fridge right now, all different. It doesn't go bad.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had it. Speaking of kimchi, have you ever been to, I'm going to try to remember the name of the place. So and I'm horrible at the name of it. It's like it's a Korean barbecue. It's like one of those Korean all you can eat barbecues.
Uh-huh.
It used to be an Oblivion tap room. Have you ever been to that one?
I haven't. No.
Okay. So the reason I'm telling you this is for this reason. They have a refrigerator just for their kimchi. They have a special fridge just for kimchi. We went there and we fell in love with their kimchi so much that we ended up buying their kimchi from them.
Wow.
And then when we tried to buy like grocery store kimchi, the bad idea. Do not do that. Because we do like a kimchi. So that was one of those things. So that's amazing. That's a great sandwich.
Thank you.
Do you go to any place to eat it?
No, that's like I would cook that at home, like on my cast iron. Like I would just like throw my cast iron on and hammer it out. That's easy. Yeah, like late night, maybe even the first thing I eat in the day, because I tend to work starve myself. I'll just start working as soon as I wake up, and then before I know it, it's like 2:00 and I haven't eaten anything yet. So it's either a smoothie but sometimes I just have a craving for too much cheese. So at least the kimchi will put something in my microbiome and help me out.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's bite into the intro. You are the editor-in-chief of The Bungalower. Can you please kind of give people a little bit of an idea of like what it is and how you got involved with it?
Bungalower Media is a hyper-local news company here in Orlando, and it focuses on Orlando's downtown bungalow neighborhoods, which is where the name comes from. You're just asking what it does?
Yeah, just tell people about what it is. If they don't know what it is, I figure this is a good way. And also how you got involved with it.
Well, I used to be the calendar editor for Orlando Weekly, and it was the worst job I ever had. Just not good. And I got to work with Billy Maines, who's like the best. He was a queer writer, really helped lead the charge for gay marriage in the state of Florida. Ran for mayor once. I loved him. He passed away when he went to go work for the gay newspaper, Watermark. But I worked with him. Aaron Sullivan, who now is like the big regional marketing person for the Orange County Library System, and I just wasn't very good at it. It's just a lot of data entry. That's what the calendar editor does. But every once in a while, they taught me so much. They were really the first people to let me know that maybe I had a voice that other people would want to listen to, or like maybe I had a writing style that was something unique, or there was something to it. And so they gave me my first cover story, and my friend Matt Brothman was working for Orlando Sentinel at the time when I was at the Weekly, and he launched something to prove that you didn't need to follow advertiser dollars and go regional with outlets. Like everybody was just always just spreading themselves too thin in their coverage area. And he was like, you could do this and just focus on downtown on a very targeted geographic area and still do well. And maybe help people more in their day-to-day lives by focusing on that targeted area. So he launched it. It did great. He was scooping everybody, and he offered the job to Scotty Campbell, my gay boyfriend. And Scotty said, no, you need to give it to Brendan. He hates his job, and he'd be great at this. And so, credit to my man for getting me that gig.
That's love right there.
It was, but also he hated me not being happy at work because happy.
Yep.
Happy husband. I don't know. Is there a rhyme for that? Happy wife, happy life, happy gay life. So I don't know. There wasn't any supervision, so I just kind of flexed. Like I was like, well, this is great. This blog. That's all it was the blog. He barely used the Instagram, and I was like, well, what if we did more Instagram stuff? Because I had done some work with the Daily City, Mark Bertelli, and he was always saying how like Instagram is the next thing. Websites are great, but everybody wants to be on social, so you need to lean more into social media. So I leaned more into social media, and people started treating us as like an influencer, kind of, or me as an influencer, even though there's always two people working for Bungalower. It was me and the salesperson, but nobody ever gave a crap about the salesperson because they weren't in front of the camera. But there's always been two people running it. Right now it's me and Mike Donahue, and Mike's great because he's a little bit in front of the camera more than which we need as we grow as an outlet. But I was working with John Bostecker, who had just been let go. He had worked for the Sentinel, and then he was working for Wesh.
Yep.
Got let go from Wesh. And he just wanted to keep his journalism name out there. So he would write stories for us every once in a while. And then he got offered a radio show on Real Radio. And he said, well, cool, let's make it a Bungalower thing. And he brought me in. I didn't know what the hell Real Radio was, like at all. I had no idea.
Really?
Like over my head. I was in a meeting with Jack Bradshaw, who's like the Daddy Jack. And he knew as soon as I sat down that I just had no idea what all this was. And he gave us a slot, and the radio show's been going strong for 7 years, one episode a week. I love it. We just won an award with Orlando Magazine, which is great. And we have a newspaper. I'm a talking head on like local news stations and like TV, radio, just talking about what we're writing all day. Yeah, just Orlando. It's kind of like I'm a professional me, which is what I didn't know I wanted for most of my life, was just to be a professional me. You do that too.
Well, and I will say I truly love like that is like what you do. And you're like, whenever I see like you hosting a show, like, and we'll kind of talk about that, the fact that, you do the, very local, you have two shows on very local, Emmy nominated for one of them, which is amazing.
Second, we're waiting. We'll find out.
Yeah.
November. Yeah.
that is very true. But I do love that how you've kind of created it. What I'm kind of curious of, well, first, let me ask a few questions because you kind of transitioned perfectly for me on some of the things because I wanted to bring up, because I've had John already on the show. So I kind of had, so if you want to hear some of John's side of it as well, John Bostecker, he has been on the show. You can listen to a previous episode.
he doesn't remember what the hell happened yesterday. So
which is perfect.
I'd love to hear what he said. I'm
Yeah.
sure none of
But
it's right.
what is something that you love about doing the show, the radio show?
The radio show, I love it. Introduced me to a whole different market in Central Florida. Like real radio listeners are not people who I would generally know or would know me. It's a conservative station.
Yeah.
Like really, these are good old boys, and for a long time they didn't know what to make of me. And I, I helped. I was on Jim Colbert's show every Friday as soon as he launched. So I was there probably for, I want to say 3 years, maybe 4.
Like every Friday, right? You were, it was like one day during the week, right? It wasn't a Friday, but it was like during the week.
Yeah, and he wanted me. He was like, just be gay, be you, and just talk about fun things to do in Orlando. And I was like, you're not ready, but I will do that. Let's see what happens. And people loved it, and they are loyal. They stick up for me in public forums when people are making fun of me. Like it's cool. I just never expected to be embraced by that demographic, which kind of bled into doing drag. I do drag sometimes, and I Brenda from Bithlo, and I started that at a Tactical Brewing, which is a veteran-owned brewery in Baldwin Park, which is in itself another isolated conservative pocket, and with a bunch of people who own boats. Like that's when you walk in and you're like, there's a bunch of rich conservative guys who probably vote against me every election, and they own nice boats. Like that's the vibe I get. And I just had them laughing, and I think opinions changed. Just from me not. I was going to say not putting on a mask, but I am literally putting on a mask and just being funny, and not taking things too seriously, and having a laugh at myself too. I think that's the biggest part.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely part of the thing that I'm drawn to. I love your energy. Your energy is one of the reasons I think that people appreciate it and kind of gravitate to. So I totally get that. And obviously, like what we talked about, and I mentioned it with John as well, like because of that opportunity, the two of you guys got to author or co-author with John, 100 Things to Do in Orlando Before Dying or Before You Die,
which is crazy. Author now. That's crazy. Yeah, he did the second edition with John, with that, what's his face, the other guy. Who like I believe a West reporter or something.
I think it was an Orlando Sentinel reporter. It may have been a West reporter, and then he left or something.
Yeah, he left town, and so that opened up the chance for me to do the third edition of book with him. Yeah, fun adventure. I'd never done anything like it. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme because they make you buy the books and sell them. Like they are selling directly to like Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Yeah. It's in all those shops, like tourism shops and things, but they also rely, like if you want to sell a book, you got to put some money down.
I bet.
A big old order.
I bet.
So we're out of books. I told John, I was like, I'm not buying any more books. I can't drive around with a trunk full of 100 Things to Do in Orlando. I end up just giving them away just because I don't want to look at them too much. I'm not very good at that part of the business.
That's funny. One of the things I read, I think it was a quote that you said somewhere, I read a quote. It was from George Bernard Shaw that said, and I think it hits kind of what you do. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I pretty much, and I think one of the other things I saw in another article or something else that you wrote, and I kind of, the best way I'll say it, Taylor Swift style, you were like in a yes era where basically you just say yes. And I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about that because there, opportunity. What was that?
And I'm not really in that era anymore, so I'm happy to talk about it because there's context now about.
I love it. Because I want to talk about this whole thing about, because obviously in the beginning you want to open yourself up and not be closed-minded. So you want to say yes to opportunities. But I also want to know is, what is the balance of finding those opportunities and knowing when to say yes and then when to be like, hey, I'm overextending or it's too much.
Man, so you tell me. I live in too much. I'm an awful boyfriend. So thank God I have a very patient partner in Scotty Campbell, and that he, like, he's getting out, he's in his 50s, right? So he's doing, off time for him is sacred. And so if he's not doing something on a weekend, that's great. That's great for him. He wants to just park it and have some beers in the carport and call it a day. I can't do that. Like, I can't do that. Like, there's always something happening. If I had a day off, it's probably going to be spent paper macheing something, or making a weird plant diorama. Like, and that's not a lie. Look, I bought this, preparing for when I have an afternoon off. I bought this weird pot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to plant some weird plants in it, but because I had this image in my head of having all these skulls and things, like make a really neat diorama. It might even just end up being moss with a bunch of skulls, and I have a little centaur toy from an old Xena toy set, and I just want to, like, put that together, So I am dogged by weird craft projects and weird event ideas all day, every day. I have running lists. Like, it makes me sound crazy. Maybe I am a little crazy, but I want to do stuff, and I feel like my day to day is juggling the main gig, and then massaging the other gigs, like Orlando Magazine and that column. They're starting to send me out on travel writing gigs, and then trying not to let down all of these other community stakeholders who have somehow have some sort of stake in my day as well. Like, they're waiting for me to send in a link to an Eventbrite thing that I'm supposed to fill out for an event that we're going to co-host, or someone's waiting for me to confirm if I'm going to be hosting their bowling fundraiser as Brenda. Like, it's that's the bulk of my day is trying to not let down all these people I've said yes to.
How do you have, like, how do you balance it all? Like, how do you balance it? Do you have, like, you like your calendar on your phone? Do you have, like, a planner?
Yeah, my Google Calendar on my phone. Like, if I didn't have that, I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I literally wake up every day, and I have to look at my calendar and be like, okay, this, and ideally I've done something the night before to prepare for what's happening that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just juggling. I am no longer in a year of yes, which was like 3 or 4 years of yes. And that opened up a lot of doors for me. Like, it was amazing. I at the end of the years, though, I got, my thyroid went crazy and my hair turned red and fell out, and I had a weird unicorn horn growing off my liver, which we didn't know what that was. I had to get that removed. Like, it's all these, like, weird body things. When I turned 40, and those years of yeses doesn't make sense anymore. Like, otherwise I will be thoroughly used up, and it's going to happen very soon. If I want to keep doing weird, crazy projects, then it started. I am in that phase now, Biggie, of weighing what is worth my time. And thankfully, I am not shy, and I can tell people if I don't think it's a good fit, or if I'm happy connecting dots with other people who I think are better for those opportunities than I am. I just had a meeting with Ivanhoe Park Brewing for their new lager house. They wanted to back in the day, I had hosted a Rocky Horror Picture Show trivia for them, which didn't go well really for them. I'm surprised they asked me to come back. Like, there were like 10 people there. So they lost money paying me to be there to take 10 people, but they wanted me to come back and do it again. And I had to be like, that's not me. There are some amazing queens who could probably come up with something fantastic. Like, here are their names and contact information. Go to them.
Yeah.
And I will be happy to add it to Bungalower's event calendar and leave it there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's
dot connecting is my new thing.
No, I totally get that. The other thing that you do when when you have time, and granted, I think it's possible that it doesn't happen all the time, but I'm pretty sure when it does, you kind of have to start filming a lot. And we kind of talked about it. I mentioned you do TV hosting. You've done 2 shows on very local. One's Restaurant on the Radar, which I absolutely love. My goal is to be on an episode when you guys talk sandwiches. I've actually talked to Oxenfree and said, "Hey, why don't we do a sandwich show?" And at one point, I was like, I'm like, as much as I want to be the one that takes you to eat sandwiches, I was like, can you at least just get me, if Brendan's going to be the one doing it, can I at least be invited to a few episodes?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I hate to hurt your feelings, but they, very local, we just found out they did huge layoffs, and they will only be doing documentaries and news programming for the foreseeable future.
Really?
Yeah, so some of our projects are just not going to happen.
Oh, that's horrible.
It is horrible, but it's, the life of TV.
I mean, I will say based on that, like, because I had the opportunity to do, I got to be either on the show, I got to be on 2 different shows. I was a blind kitchen judge. I got to do Hit Me With Your Best Spot. I got to do one of those. The one issue that I always had about it was if it was trying to make it for streaming, you couldn't watch it on YouTube. You couldn't watch it anywhere else. And if you didn't live in the area, you technically would have to change your zip code in order to watch some of the shows.
Too many barriers.
No, it was too much.
And they probably could have made more money if they had just actually done it straight to YouTube and became what do you call it, monetized on YouTube. Like they would have made bank with some of that programming. They had Boston Rob doing stuff in Boston.
I know they had great shows.
Yeah, some of them are great.
Yeah. No, I know. But but you did great, and you did. The last one that you did was On the Job, so I thought that was kind of fun to be able to. You got to do quite a bit.
They asked me if I wanted. So after the success of Restaurants on the Radar, they asked me, which I got that job just because location scouting. I was location scouting for their cooking show, and I think Ricky Lee was in talks to be the host.
Okay.
Was it funny enough or something? I'll say no shade, Ricky, but something happened. He couldn't hold it, and I just kept making them laugh in their Zoom meetings, and so they pulled in Laura Ling, who was the head of the network, Lisa Ling's sister, big time journalist, who I'm a huge fan of, and I didn't even know she was on the call, and then all of a sudden she was like, "All right, we're gonna work with you," and I was like, "What is happening?" Like they just kind of. Surprised me, and like, you're gonna host the show, you're not just helping us find spots for free, like we want to pay you to do this. And then they asked me if I wanted to do a season 2, and I was like, well, I actually have an idea of me just trying things, like why don't we, there used to be a show called the Rick Mercer Report up in Canada, which I loved, and he was like this national hero in Canada who just went all over small towns, middle of nowhere places, met people across Canada and just did things that they did, like racing snow machines across open water in the spring, or helping out with the spring bear tagging, like going into bear dens where they're hibernating and tagging them. And he's like a funny man. And then it turned out when I was older he was gay. So there was always this thing in the back of my head. I was like, I want to be Rick Mercer, and I wonder if I can try this. And they made it a little bit more like Dirty Jobs, but I'm really proud of how On the Job came out.
That's awesome. No, it was definitely good. And then obviously, of course, you also, like you mentioned, you also do food columnist for Orlando Magazine.
Yeah, right. Not expected. Joseph Hayes was their critic for the longest time. I'd see him at all the foodie events, and he retired. I don't think he's a big fan of mine. I don't know. He's an amazing, like he is really like a critic. And I have a really good relationship with the publisher, Catherine Walters there, and so she asked me if I wanted to be their new critic, and I said no, because critics don't make friends, but I will have a column writing about food. Like I know everything that's happening in town because of Bungalower. Like we're working with these people before they even open. let's see where it goes. And she told me a couple times my column is their most read content on Orlando Magazine right now.
That's amazing.
It is, and I not to blow smoke up my own butt, but I think that I'm proud of that. I'm proud of it.
As you should
be. Not that I ever wanted to, expected to. My whole career is just things I've fallen into.
I don't think it's fallen into, but I do think that it is a mixture of the yeses.
Yeah.
And a mixture of just kind of constantly like just doing different things and being okay to be outside of your comfort zone, or at least out of or maybe just being true to yourself.
I think it's a comfort zone thing too. I think people know it's a pretty good chance that I'm going to say yes if you need me to ask me to do something.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to let anyone down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. What? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about like how. So I know we've talked a little bit about like how you unwind or how you try to unwind, but like I'm kind of curious because like in my world, so like I know you mentioned like in my world, like yes, like I tend to be like I love Orlando, I love doing stuff in Orlando, but like how. I like try to figure out like ways, and obviously I have a full-time job, so I'm also juggling stuff. But I'm always kind of curious on like for people that want to, I don't know, like they like the influencers or anything like that. Like they're all obviously trying to get into the spotlight, but I feel like you get into the spotlight because you're not trying to get something out of it. It's almost like I feel like there's a genuine, I want to be able to help and I want to be able to do something, that's different.
I think that's why I've been around longer than a lot of, like, we see a lot of food. I love that you brought that up. Food influencers on Instagram. It's because it's for them.
Yeah.
Like it's them eating the sandwich. It's them eating the same sandwich. It's them trying the $15 hot dog that everybody and their mom has tried already, yes. But they don't care. They're not. It's because it's about them. If they have checked it off their list and shown you their impression of it, then it doesn't count. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I've seen a lot of them fade out through the years because their motivation is to be famous and make a lot of money, and it's hard work, and there's a lot of white noise in that industry.
Yeah.
So that's you really got to work hard and smart, if you want to make money in the foodie influencer column landscape.
How do you balance, because of the fact of Bungalow?
You asked me that multiple times, and I still haven't answered your question. How do I balance all of these things?
No. And that's fine because I know you don't balance. So but I am kind of curious when you're doing all the things that you do, figuring out where goes where, because in the sense that you have Bungalower, then you have articles and things that you would do for Orlando Magazine. Then you have obviously podcast stuff and things like that. Like, how do you figure out, like, sometimes it's like, hey, I'm doing stuff for Bungalower, and then as you're doing it, you're like, oh, this would make for a great article in Orlando Magazine, or hey, I'm doing this would be a great angle for me to go and use them as a place to go eat at and maybe talk about when we go to do Bungalower and The Bus.
It's always gut with me, really. Luckily with the magazine, a lot of that is assigned. Unless if it's like an issue and they're like, hey, this issue's about frozen shit, then I have the freedom to round up all the frozen food that I think is really good that people need to try. Like that just happened. That's easier for me to compartmentalize because Bungalower, just the nature of the beat, is about headlines that people are going to talk about at the dinner table. We have a dinner table test. Like, are people going to talk about that at the dinner table? So it's more like a drunk person crashed their car into the water fountain at Bowman Park, or there's a new restaurant moving into Black Beans or Beans Bordeaux. What I'm trying? Bike
yes, yeah. Triple B.
Triple B.
Yeah,
which
on Corinne, right? On Corinne.
Yeah, Cora is this new Italian restaurant. We're actually recording the show there tomorrow.
Okay.
But they like that has like they just kind of easily sort themselves like Connect Four. It's just most of them easily. I can't think of anything where I felt like I was double dipping or like with radio we can be a little bit more off the cuff and opinionated because I originated that with John. So there was no rules that came with our radio show other than don't cuss on air. Yeah. Right? And it still needs to be about things that we've covered that previous week. So I'm writing stuff all week. We round it up on Thursday, Friday. That's when it airs. Which is great. Thank you. So that just kind of organically handled itself. And then the Orlando magazine, is more topical, broad stuff. So juggling the coverage areas and the compartments into which I file those stories, it kind of just handles itself. Yeah. Social media, it's got to be something I know it's got a little hook to it, or we used to throw everything at social media, and I find we don't need to do that anymore. It's just overwhelming for people.
It is. It's a tough one. So I know you mentioned when you do have downtime, you have your either paper mache and you're doing something of the sorts. You have done some, and that's kind of one of the big things. Like I know you're like an artist and you've done a lot of public art projects around the city. And I kind of want to talk, I know my show's evergreen, but I don't care because I think in a few years, even if someone were to listen to this episode, they're still going to talk about the same thing. Can we talk about the latest idea that you had that I think is probably one of the more polarizing? The only other thing more polarizing has been the damn hot dog from Primrose, I would say, but it is one of the most polarizing topics, and that is about the big city birds. And I know that it's a collab with like downtown, Downtown Live and Orlando Downtown Development Board. But can you talk a little bit about like how that idea came about and how it happened, and then tell people a little bit what it is, because they probably have seen it and going, what the F is this?
So a little bit about me, I went to school for city planning. That's what my degree is in. And I have a love for a concept called placemaking, which is, transforming a space into a place. That's the tagline, right? And it's usually through art, whether that art is temporary or long-term. Like you can artistically enhance a space to make it something really special that people will want to keep coming back to day after day. They experience new things. They're encountering new things. I live for that stuff. Like I have Pinterest folders full of that crap. And so Cole Neesmith and his memoir agency and Creative City Project, they're the people that do that big art event downtown called Immerse that showcase.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Right? It's cool. It's cool. It's got some issues, but we don't.
Yeah. Everything's got issues when you got a lot of people involved.
Yeah, which I could never do an event on that scale. It's insane, especially in downtown Orlando. They paid me money to be a dumpster merman 2 years ago.
I remember that.
Right? I was in a dumpster as a merman handing out pearls of wisdom that lit up to people, and I told them funny shit like, don't pee in the wind, or like, wash out your recyclables. Like, just dumb crap. And then I blew on the thing, and I gave them this pearl, and they loved it. They know I'm game for anything. They know I love placemaking. They were given money through United Arts and the Downtown Development Board to have a year-long series of activations of art installations and sculptures in downtown Orlando to kind of like hype it up, give people a reason to walk around downtown and see something new, right? Yeah. Because it's not doing that well downtown. With this transition between getting rid of nightclubs or too many nightclubs and trying to make it more family friendly, it needs some help. It needs some programming. So they have stepped in. They had a round table of local artists that they've worked with before, that or just people who are creatives who might have some ideas. I showed up with my giant PDF mind map, brain dump of all of these things that I would love to see downtown, and they didn't like any of them. And they, but one of the things they ran with was me talking about someone had done inflatable tentacles.
I've seen that.
Property, right? Like it's kind of viral now.
Yeah.
And I was like, this idea of inflatables is interesting to me, and I know that they had done stuff before with Architects of Air, like that huge inflatable Martian maze that they did in front of Dr. Phillips Performing Arts. If you've never been there, it was like bounce house on shrooms, amazing. And Cole was like, well, what would you do? And I was like, I don't know, like pigeons, all different colors, looking down at people from the rooftops. And he said, that's it. That's the idea we're going to do with you. And so I whipped up some just ideations, of different colored pigeons, polarized pigeons on some rooftops. And my job was to secure the locations. And so I secured the locations, these rooftops with these disparate owners, and got them to sign contracts. And then while we were scouting, I got heat exhaustion and had to go to the hospital or in an ambulance. I have a little burn on my leg. It was crazy. But they did all the installation. They've done everything. So I didn't need to go up on the roof.
It's even better.
I'd have to sew together these pigeons.
Nope.
They had someone in Bulgaria do it, who they work with, and it looks great. And so now we have, I want to say 9 neon inflatable pigeons just peeping at people from the rooftops. And I see families taking their pictures in front of them, drunk people taking their pictures, and there are people who love whimsical installations with no real narrative. And there are people who see that and they see it as a complete waste of time and space, and it makes them mad.
Very polarizing.
I knew that there'd be some of the latter. I did not expect it's very 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because it's an election year. Like it's very down the middle. And thankfully it's not. I have not received any hate mail.
Okay.
And I've gotten some real doozies in the past from people. No death threats this time, like it was just, I just see in the comments where people are like, what the hell is this? I can't believe tax dollars paid for these pigeons, like we should be helping homeless
people. Yep. I saw that one. I read that one.
That one I don't get, because I'm like, we have millions of dollars of programming going into helping homeless people. So are they saying we should just do nothing but help homeless people? Is that what the argument is? Because I'm like, you got to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really, I wish it had been like ibises or like, even like, could it have been inflatable flowers and vines growing up in the alleyways? Yes. Like there are many different things we could have done. But this is what they commissioned, and they went with it. And I'm really proud of it. I think it's funny.
No, they're great. And Mike, so a few things. One, you said it's a year long. So will it be a year long of these pigeons?
No,
or will these pigeons be here for a bit and they're gone?
Yeah, 2 months and they're gone. But I don't know who gets to keep. I think Creative City gets to keep them, and then they'll just bust them out every once in a while for shits and giggles, just
That's cool.
To trigger some, financial conservatives every year.
And if it's a year-long thing, are you part of the others for the other additional 10 months?
Not really. I haven't heard what the programming is for the other ones. I did just pitch them something else though, because I had so much fun with the process, and it was relatively simple for me.
Yeah.
I'd love to see some sunshades. Like really, like you see those at music festivals sometimes. Mm-hmm. They look like really almost like sand mandalas, but they're sunshades in the air. I think we could do really interesting versions of that along Orange Avenue. And that's also serving the purpose of shading people.
Yes, people walking downtown.
Like make the pedestrian experience nicer.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to look at. Maybe it helps with water too. I don't know, like something like that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. It's super fun, and I think it's great, and I love the idea that that's how you originally kind of started, was the whole idea of making making a space a place, and that
And it
aspect
does.
of it.
It's funny how it almost provides a ceiling. Like you've lowered, people aren't looking up generally when you walk through downtown. And so by putting an art, I know maybe you'll get mad, by putting something there that you can't avoid with your
Yeah,
eyes, it's provided almost like a horizon for you or an ending point, and it's made it more approachable. And you feel, sometimes they call it like when you're making a room, like if you're in an outdoor space, and if you don't have clear boundaries to an outdoor space, it can make people feel uncomfortable. Like it's too big, it's too boundless. Where does it end? Like you could fall out. So
yeah.
by giving people these boundaries, it helps bring things in and make it a little more comfortable for them long term.
Man, I there's so many, like, I like love, like, there's so many aspects of the fact that, like, of what you do and how you do it. Like, there's so many aspects where, like, I'm like that's kind of what I want to do. Like, I want to be able to, like, be a voice and be able to help others, and I do in a certain way. And that's something that I do appreciate, because you're right. I don't ever, like, nothing against, like, the foodie, like, I don't expect to be, like, Instagram famous or any of that stuff, like, kind of influencer wise. I just do as I do. um and it's kind of like, reason why I do the show. Like, I've had a lot of people tell me, like, why would you do this show? It has nothing to do with your brand. And what about your brand? And you should be doing this. And I jokingly told someone, today, one of my coworkers, I was like, there's so many things that I love. And this is something that I'm kind of curious and get your perspective on, because I'm like, there's so many things I love. Like, I love doing my clothing brand. I love doing my 2 podcasts, but I also know that, in all honesty speaking, like, I should be maybe putting more time into each one of them to make it great. Like, I think they're all good,
Yeah,
but none of them are great, because I like, there's only, because I also have all the other things I do, and I'm
they're never gonna
juggling it
be
all.
perfect. They're never gonna be perfect, and that's, you have to let go of uh, that seek for perfection, because
Yeah.
I think you're like me, that it's fun to have your finger in a bunch of different pies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to poke all those pies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and why just poke one pie? I think there is a little bit of a midlife moment too, which I think you and I share, of what is the long term uh,
Yeah. I feel
right
you, man.
payout of this project.
Yeah.
Like, should I, and I'm going through that a little bit right now. My dad is 82. I don't get up to Canada enough to see everybody. When I am there, it's amazing. I've made it a priority now to go every summer. Like, that's my vacation, is to go up and see my family. But now I'm like, well, how can I monetize this trip? How can I be making money when I'm up here so I can keep coming up? How can
Yeah.
I, like, what are some fun ideas that I should be cooking up to make this easier for everybody, and then also maybe help support the family. So
Yeah.
uh, that's, it's funny, that's coming into play now. Like, I just had a meeting with someone about uh, maybe, I don't know if I should say it, but about like a special. I'll just say it. I don't care.
No one's listening. No one's listening.
I think there should be a gay bar up by Disney.
Okay.
That's what brought me here, was working at Epcot as a Canadian in the Canadian Steakhouse. That's how I got to Orlando.
Yeah.
And there's nothing out there for gay people other than, Disney, which is pretty gay in itself. But all these, like, business people who are coming in and staying at the Swan and Dolphin, like, there should be a gay bar over there. And I was just talking to somebody about it, who actually, he buys bars, and he opens bars. And I was like, well, maybe that's something I should be looking at. And we've had a little plan for one, like a concept that could
Okay.
easily put into play, or maybe it's a Canadian whiskey bar in the old China shop above the restaurant that I used to work with at Epcot. And like I'm starting to think more about long-term, larger projects that are a longer life cycle
Yeah.
than like the Pigeons and The Pigeons. I sound like David Cosby. The Pigeons, Jello. But like, you know what I mean? I think that's a natural thing of coming into this. Or like we launched this Yoga High series with my good friends, my good pothead friends. One's a yoga teacher, and the other one, Mandy, she's a medical marijuana instructor. She teaches medical marijuana classes to people at the villages.
Wow.
To these seniors who have been not brainwashed, whatever. They've been told their whole lives that pot is bad, right?
Yeah.
But it can actually help with some of the things that they're experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
With your arthritis, it can help you with appetite loss because of some of the meds that they're giving you. And so now we have this thing called Yoga High where you smoke pot if you have your medical card, and Mandy guides you through what's happening to you, and Sarah, our yoga instructor, guides you through the class in a way that's very mindful that maybe you don't have the best balance right now because you're super stoned. And we're doing it in an open public area where other people can see it happening. So we're taking people out of this green closet. They've been, because everybody is about, no, I know it's legal if you have your medical card, but a lot of people are smoking like still by the dumpster.
Yeah.
Because they're scared. Or they don't want to intrude on people. But now it's just like beer, allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
So why not do it out in the open? And that concept and those events that are coming from that nugget, are really exciting. So I just love coming up with branding. I love coming up with new ideas and running with it. And hopefully we all make money at the same time. And that one it's been really easy to get sponsorships, and we need to do merch.
You may have to do merch now, especially since everyone loves the yoga attire, the yoga jerseys or the yoga tank tops. Oh, merch for me. I got no merch for yoga high. I actually did have an idea, and a la carte was nice enough to let me do it. Because I wanted to do, I feel like there's a certain level when it came to yoga where I basically, where people think like you have to be like super fit, flexible, super fit. And I was like, I like doing yoga, but I feel self-conscious about doing yoga when you go to those things. So I actually created, and I was able to we did it like 3 or 4 times. It worked out pretty well, but I called it Everybody Yoga.
Love it.
And we would go, and then we had the yoga instructor knew, hey, because what happens is you go to these yoga things and all of a sudden the yoga instructor's like, you're going to go do this, and now you're going to turn into a pretzel. And you're like, well, I can't turn into a pretzel. Like I may need those like,
you
bricks.
need to know what the other levels are.
Correct. I need the alternative version of it, of like, hey, if you can't do this, it's okay. Here's an alternative.
We'll have 2 people, just like when you, like an old Jade Fonda workout move. So you can see different levels.
Yes.
What they're doing. And I agree.
And so we did
you
that.
You don't always know that if you're a first timer.
No. And then you feel self-conscious about it.
And that's when you can get hurt.
Yep.
When you're trying to push yourself to keep up with those Joneses.
So that was the big reason why I wanted to do it. And it was very cool because we would do it on a Sunday or a Saturday. I think it was like a Saturday or a Sunday. We do it right before they opened. So we would be able to do the yoga. And then by the time they finished, the bar was open. You're now able to drink and do all that. And we did that at a la carte a few times. And I loved it because it was one of those ideas that I had that I was like, oh, I want to do this. And it was like, let's just do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Okay.
We did a rooftop yoga, downtown. And I loved it. I was so proud of it, and I wanted to make it a series. But the yoga people that we hired stole the idea and started doing it on their own without us. But that's fine. The seed was planted. Obviously I didn't come up with the concept of yoga on the rooftop. So good for them for going with it. But I kind of shitty for them because I'll never work with them again. I'll always remember that.
Correct. They always left a sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone for wanting to start something?
Unless you can do it every day. Like if you can't see yourself doing it on a regular pattern for a year, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, then don't fucking do it. I see all these people who launch things, podcasts especially, who just it'll fiddle out. They don't know how much work it is. Like us, which I wish we'd kept into consideration as we launch our things. Like we had a mini book, like we were doing a zine every month.
I remember that.
Much easier to put out than the newspaper we're putting out now. Like
Yeah.
And I'm literally laying it out when we're not talking today. If you're not 100% prepared for how much time that's going to need consecutively for however long you're going to run it, then just figure something else to do. Or find someone else that can do that work for you. Because that consistency is so key in a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I say that as someone who posts their podcast a day later, a date early every week. So.
Oh, I'm with you, man. I try to balance it, and I have like this certain ideas of what I try to do to try to keep myself scheduled, because it is a daunting task to be able to do. And I get it.
Yeah. And I always get messages from like a few real keen listeners who are always like, is it up yet? Are you doing it? Do we get to listen to it now? Which is great. Great problem. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll get to it when I get to it, you guys.
That's how it works. Where can people so we can wrap up, where can people follow you? Where can they read? Where can they listen, watch? Where can they get all this stuff? I mean, obviously I'm going to put it in the show notes, but as they're listening now and they're like, man, this guy's like amazing. I want to check out everything. Where can they see or hear and listen and watch you? My
Instagram is the most updated platform I have. So at Beekeep, BKEEPZ. That's my old Beekeeper was my street artist name when I used to tag trains and stuff. Beekeeper, which is why I have this tattoo, little bee thing.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, I have a behind the scenes blog that I do for myself, which has not been updated in a month or two, but it's BrendanO'Connor.me, which I try to do more, like fun projects that I'm working on, what I was thinking when something happened, kind of an extension of the LinkedIn, and then just Bungalower.com and all the Bungalower.com stuff. So, like if you are new to town or old to town, but just looking to plug in, we work hard to cover the coolest things happening in town, or at least the things that we know you should care about if you want to really live your best Orlando life. Bungalower.com.
I love that. And then obviously you can listen to Bungalower and The Bus, either a podcast or on 104.1. What day of the week is it? Friday?
Friday at 8 p.m. And you podcast on all the platforms, iHeart, iTunes, Play Store. You can find it on all those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question before we head out.
Okay.
What is it that you love about Orlando so much?
That it loves me.
I love that.
It's kind of like when someone asked me, like, what am I attracted to most? Like if you're at a bar or something, what are you attracted to? And it's like anyone who pays attention to me. Yeah. So I like that Orlando likes me. Orlando's been really good to me. Just as much as I had a year of yes, I feel like if you do Orlando right, or you're living just if you're living from an honest place in your heart about who you are and what you want to do, I feel like Orlando will meet you halfway and help you make those things happen. And I never planned to be here nearly as long as I've been here, almost 17 years. I thought I was coming down to finish school and then move back. And I'm here just because Orlando keeps giving me more opportunities.
I love that, man. That is so great. And I agree, and I do. And I'm one of those that love you. So I definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on it. I know I've been trying forever to try to get you on. I've actually been on your show more than you in all of that, but at least I do love that what you do and what you've created. I always tell people about Bungalower and just about who you are. And so I definitely appreciate you having you in my life.
Thank
and it's
you.
very inspirational.
I love when I see you out and about. I wish we could support you more than we do. I'm a big fan, and thank you for inviting me into your sandbox today.
Yes, for sure. And if I haven't already, I thought I did, but if I haven't already, I still owe you a Sauce Queen shirt because I need you to model it.
Oh yeah.
So I do need to make that happen for you.
Okay.
For sure. So that's our show for today. Thank you so much to Brendan O'Connor of the Bungalower and Bungalower and the Bus and everything else from our Orlando Magazine, everything else that we talked about. You'll see it all in the show notes. Thank you so much for having lunch with me. Definitely check them out online. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and tell your friends. If you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Obviously, sandwich selfies are always encouraged. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.